misery, my winter Midwest misery. I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we have about 6 to 8 weeks left of misery, and then we might see some sun. Today, right now, it is 5 degrees. 5 degrees. Got my Dunkin' hash brown. I just got to work. Okay, so I'm gonna start with let's start with the biggest financial problem. I own a mobile home. My son rents it from me. At cost, like, he doesn't really rent it from me. He pays the lot rent, okay? And his own bills. And that's where I stay when I'm up here working. Mobile homes in the wintertime, there's always something, because they're not really built for extreme weather conditions. So I get a call one day at work, and they're like, there's water coming out from under the mobile home. It's like the park people. So that means that a pipe burst. It froze and it burst. So she's like, we're gonna go send somebody over there to turn off the water. So she goes and sends somebody over there to turn off the water. And she's like, well, when the weather warms back up, we'll send somebody back over there to turn the water back on. So we're like, okay, we have 0 water until it warms back up. Well, in the interim, like, me and my son do not go under the mobile home. We have no idea what goes on under the mobile home. We're not savvy like that, so neither of us went under there to turn anything back on. But I get another call that was like, well, somebody must have turned the water back on because now the meter is broke. The water meter, like the thing that sticks up out of the ground in your yard. And I'm like, we didn't turn the water back on. Are you sure somebody turned it back on, or can this happen without it being turned back on? And she's like, no, somebody turned it back on. Why would anybody do that? I don't believe you. So, the meter broke too, right? So, she goes, we don't do that. You have to call the water company. So I'm like, telling my son, you gotta call the water company. You gotta deal with this. Like, I'm at work. Water company isn't open. It was like, oh, it was Martin Luther King weekend. They're closed on Friday. This happened like on a Thursday night or something. They're closed on Friday. Closed on the weekend. They were closed on Monday. Gets a hold of them, and they say, oh, we only come out once a month to take a look at stuff. So call a regular plumber, and we'll give you like this code where they can mess with our stuff. So he calls several plumbers. They're like, we don't do mobile homes. We don't do mobile homes. Meanwhile, he's not asking them like for referrals or do you know who. So he calls me all frustrated, like, I don't know what to do. None of these places work on mobile homes. was like, all right, do that. So anyway, he finds a plumber. They have to like thaw stuff out and do a bunch of crap. The total was $2,100. $2,100. So he's having a fit. I'm having a fit because like we're both splitting this, you know. I mean, I'm not having a fit. There's nothing I can do about it. Like, I'm just depressed about it. He's having a fit. Like, he's not where I'm at. Like, I'm emotionally dead sometimes. He's not there yet. He's got about 20 years. I don't know. He's a man, so he might get there sooner than I did. So, like, it is what it is. I'm just gonna have to start put it on credit, start chipping away at it, you know. Anyway, water is restored. But the whole thing was about 2 weeks of no water. So, and this has happened to me when I was living there years ago. You have to like shower at the gym. Like, you have to get gallons of water to flush your toilet. It's a nightmare. But the mobile home's pretty decent. It's a decent place to live. And it's paid for. And like, you kind of gotta, because he's like, I'm moving. This is so ridiculous. And I was like, do you know what it cost to like pay real rent and your bills? Like, it's not easy. So anyways, there was that. And then like I mentioned, sorry, I mentioned in another video how I had like some kind of heart thing going on. So I went in for my annual checkup. Actually, it was my annual after having the baby, so it was with OBGYN. And she's listening to my heart, and she's like, and I'm like, she's like, you have irregular heartbeat. I'm gonna send you over for EKG. I'm like, oh, okay. So she gives me like a form and says I need to go for an EKG. Like, it's not urgent, but within like a few days. So I'm like, all right. And I kind of feel like that place could be a little hyper vigilant, so I wasn't really worried about it. Then I go for my EKG, and I get to the hospital. Somebody's being arrested at the hospital. Like, it's a shit show in there. It's full. Like they said, the hospital's just full of like COVID, and so they're like directing people into different like little places. And so I get there and I check in and I go do my EKG there, and he's like, we'll get this read today. Well, I didn't get a phone call that day or the next day or the next day, so I'm like, must be good, right? It wasn't good. I finally got a phone call, and she's like, the EKG read irregular, so we're gonna refer you to see a cardiologist. When we find one, we'll call you. So I'm like, okay. Shit. So the next like swelling, and then I did another EKG, and I'm waiting on the doctor. And he comes in, and he's got like no personality, which always like puts me on edge. But he's like, well, I can see why they sent you over, because on the other EKG it looks like you had a silent heart attack. I was like, and nobody's mentioned this to me. Okay. But he's like, I don't think you did. And I was like, alright. He's like, they're just kind of like wonky sometimes, like when you have them done at non-specialist appointments. I was like, okay, you're sure? Like, I'm gonna live to see another day. He's like, yeah. He's like, your EKG here looks good. And that's the one we go with because, like, we know what we're doing. I don't think I had a silent heart attack either, but if that was even like a possibility, why would they even like send me home, you know? Keep me there longer. Do it again. I don't know. Apparently my ticker's working, so we're good, right? For now. He's like, if you have any like shortness of breath or swelling or anything, call your doctor. Okay. So that's that. Those are like the big people problems. And then my normal, like regular people problems, like my front tire. That was weird. My front tire keeps being low on air. Like not keeps, it's done this twice, but it's always when it's freezing. So it'll go to like 23, and then it might go back up to like 25. Anyway, I've had to put air, well I haven't, I've had my fiance put air in it 2 times. Now this is normal-ish in the Midwest when it goes like to 0 degrees for your tire to like get a little low. But since it's been the same tire 2 times, now I'm concerned. Is it new tire time or is it new tires time? Okay, because one I can handle and the other I will have a little bit of a bitch fit because I'm already in this like little financial predicament. Or is it nothing at all? Like when the weather warms up, is my tire gonna, I need to just look at the tire and see if it's even like time, you know, like tread wise. So there's that. And then my dumbass. So I have the Dunkin' app. And I'm like getting in the car this morning, 5 degrees, freezing my arse off. And I get on the app and I swear to God, I don't know what kind of shit I did in the past to like make these things happen, because I scrolled over to this Dunkin' location and hit it. I watched myself hit the one on this street. Yet somehow the order went in to my other, like 2 hours away from here. Okay. So I'm driving. I didn't know yet. I'm driving. Get to Dunkin'. They're like, I'm like, hey, it's Nat, you know, here for my online order. They're like, we don't have you. I'm like, so I look on there and it said for the other location. I'm like, all right, well, I still need my breakfast and my coffee, so let me order it. And it's like a whole thing. You cannot just cancel it on the app. So I basically threw away an extra $10. Anyways, on a positive note, my heart's okay, right? We think. And yesterday like, do you mind moving into the smaller one when the other lady that was in here leaves? I'm like, I don't care. It's not ideal, but I can put up with anything 2 days a week. I'm not a diva, okay? Unlike, all right, so I get all the way moved over to this room, and there's no key. There's a lock on the door, but nobody gave me a key. The lady that left, she said she left some keys up at the front, but we never found them. So I have not been locking the door, right? Well, last week I wasn't here. Oh, that's another thing. I had COVID, so I had to call off a few days. So I wasn't at this location for 2 weeks. So I get to work yesterday. So I missed, like, that's another financial like hit, right? I had to miss several days of work. So I get here yesterday morning. I drive in from Iowa. 2-hour, 20-minute drive. There was a whiteout in the middle. Like, it was fine when I left Iowa, and it was fine up here, but the whole middle was like white knuckle driving. Now I can do white knuckle driving if I know I know what I'm up against. I try to avoid it, but it was surprise whiteout because it was fine when I left. And the way like weather is, Iowa usually gets everything before Illinois, so I always know what I'm driving into because Iowa would have got it first, right? Like by a few hours. No, Iowa got nothing. So this either came out of nowhere or it decided it was time to let loose right over where I was driving. So it was like wind, whiteout, slippery roads, just treacherous. So I'm already like all tight and stuff when I get here, like, so anxiety already from all this other stuff is just like on 10, and I get here and somebody had locked the door to my suite. Granted, they probably thought they needed to lock everything up one day, like let me make sure everything, I don't know what the hell they thought, but I don't have a key. And so I get here and I'm like, I cannot freaking afford to miss any work, and I just drove up here. I need to get in this room, right? And all of the traditional methods of breaking into an interior door were not working. Like, it's a really tight frame, like you cannot get a card in there. It's tight. And like the bobby pins and the little screwdrivers, nothing was working. Well, there happened to be like a retired detective dropping his mom off for like a haircut or something. He's like, I'll run home and get my little lock set and work on it. Like, okay, you're an angel. Thank you. He tried, and it was fun to watch. But meanwhile, like my client's about to get here. I'm like, so then he's like, I'm gonna go home and just get a saw and saw the lock off, right? So he does that. Still can't get in. So we end up having to just boot the door in. So now I have like a jacked up door, but I was able to work yesterday. So there's that. And then the whole COVID thing. Just like, I don't know, because that was my first time having it. It was bad. Like, it was bad right at first because I got allergies. I was like, oh, like I felt like pressure. I'm like, oh, I feel like it's turning into a sinus infection. Like, that was like day 1. And like my head hurt. And I went to Walgreens. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any? I went to Walgreens and CVS, like looking for tests. They're like, no, we don't have any. So I went home, took my temperature. I'm like, okay, no fever. I was like, it's probably sinuses then. And I could smell and taste. But then when my fiance got sick and the baby started like acting sick, I'm like, no. We need to get a hold of some tests. Like, so his work, like a guy at his work dropped off rapid testing and mine was positive right away. So, from there it got worse. Like my head felt like it was like there was a bowling ball pushing up against like every facet of my head. Nights were the worst. Like, yeah, it's like just like sinus pressure. The phlegm. Yet your mouth is so dry at the same time. I'm like, how can it be both? You know. That it was like really bad for about 3 days, but I never lost my sense of taste or smell. I was hungry the whole time. The baby was really only down for 1 day. Not too bad. He was just like snuggly, which I didn't mind because as soon as he got better, it was like he was on steroids. And I was still sick. And then of course, my fiance like we're both sick, but he's man sick, which was the same thing except he could fall asleep on the couch and I couldn't. So anyways, I think that about covers most of my current winter misery. So it's probably about to get loud in here. I hope you are all doing better